I am Bob Bennett, and it's really an honor to be here to talk about the Hizmet Movement in Turkey. And my background is that I'm a native Texan, born in Texas, and grew up in a scenic spot in North Texas called Amarillo, Texas, which in Spanish means yellow. It's not exactly a very pretty place, but it was a nice place to grow up. And I've been in Houston now for about 30 years and practiced law here. And got to know something about the Hizmet movement and have been very intrigued with it ever since.
You said you got to know Hizmet Movement, and my question would be, how did you get to know Hizmet Movement?
The way that I got to know the Turks who came to the United States and are here in Houston and the Hizmet movement or the Gulen movement, I think is a very humorous story. I hope you will too. I was at a Bennett luncheon, and the person who's in charge in interfaith ministry, a gentleman by the name of Elliot Gershenson, we started talking to each other and got to know each other, and he said, "I'm organizing an interfaith trip to Turkey. Would you like to go?" Even though I'd circumnavigated the world, I'd traveled to maybe 35 countries, I'd never been to Turkey, and my response was, no, I wouldn't. And then he said, well, how would you like to go for free? And I said, well, that intrigues me. And so several years ago, I guess it's been 8 years now, I had my first trip to Turkey. We went with an interfaith group with some of the leading citizens in Houston, both in the medical community and the legal community, and had what I consider a sort of life-impacting trip on many, many levels, and have become kind of a quasi-expert, quasi-aficionado of Turkey, Turkey culture, Turkey history, in many ways the Hizmet movement.
Your introduction to movement made me also smile, but my question would be, after this introduction, what is your overall opinion about the Hizmet movement?
Well, that's been an evolving thing over, again, many, many years, and much study and many visits to Turkey. And at first I was kind of skeptical. You know, what are these people up to? Why are they doing this? Do they have a hidden agenda? Is this really believable? In growing up in Amarillo, Texas, if you were a Baptist, that was kind of exotic. You know, that was about as exotic as you got. And an exotic trip growing up in Texas would be to Oklahoma City. So to go to Istanbul, to be in Turkey, and then to come to know this group of people was really life impacting, as I said, because of all the things they've accomplished and the good they've done.
Let's talk about a little bit Mr. Gulen. What are your views about Mr. Fethullah Gulen?
Well, I have in many ways studied him. I've read his books. I've read books about him. I have met people that in the United States, I would say, are in the upper levels of the movement on a one-to-one basis. Even though I've never met him, I certainly have met a number of people who have met him. And he is a wonderful leader. He's a person that inspires not only adults, but inspires youth. And the impact of that on so many levels has been profound. And so I certainly am an admirer of him. There are some things that I find to be improved, but I certainly am an admirer of him. And there's been talk about him being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and I think that would be another wonderful thing.
Let's get into a little bit details about Mr. Gulen. In your opinion, what are the most significant contributions of Mr. Fethullah Gulen and also Hizmet movement to common goal?
Well, again, I have a history with this. It goes back, I even like to use the term of the original city, Smyrna, which we as Christians know about, which is now Izmir, which was the sort of birth of the Gulen movement and the birth of the Hizmet movement. And it's simply as kind of an itinerant preacher, that's where Gulen, the minister, started. And from that, he has now reached out through his I don't want to use the word disciples. I want to say people that have been motivated by him to do schools, hospitals, incredible eleemosynary, which means the benefit, for the benefit of people in the world. And so when you have that type of impact, when you can see that people are motivated to do so much good, that has to come from something. Of course it comes to the Quran, of course it comes to the Islamic tradition. But to shape and form that the way he has is to be greatly admired.
So let's get into a little bit more general. You know, Islam is one of the biggest religions in the world today. And there are different images on the media and other places, and different groups claiming to represent Islam. In your view, how does Hizmet Movement represent Islam?
You know, what we hear on the news is the issues of the radicalization of Islam. What we hear in the news is things such as Boko Haram, the ISIS, the situation in Paris. And so, starting back in the United States, of course, with 9/11, all this has to be taken into consideration as to how the American public and how I approach Islam. And certainly there is that horrible aspect of some people that have become radicalized. But what is not being promulgated, what is not being shown, are the methods and ways that the Hizmet movement has taken Islam and taken it to, I consider, a different level. I consider it a level of charity and love, and a level of community involvement that is to be greatly admired and to be praised and to be encouraged. So I am hoping that even with all these problems that are now present and have occurred over the past years, the American public and the American government will do whatever it can to encourage what the Hizmet group is doing, not only in the United States, but in the world. And let me talk a minute about what's going on in the United States. I have served as an attorney for the school movement here, dealing with what's called charter schools. And it's interesting that the Hizmet movement and the people that are inspired by that are actually, through Harmony Schools, are the largest owner of charter schools in the state of Texas. Now, when the conservative Republican Texas legislature first came up with charter schools and thought this would be a good idea, they had no idea that this Islamic Turkish influenced group would become the purchasers and the runners of that. And so that is, you say, well, what's going on with that? On the other hand, when you actually go to the schools, as I have done, talk to the students, talk to the principals, talk to the teachers. I have represented Harmony and Harmony-related matters in both Texas and Louisiana. And you see the accomplishments. You have to be impressed with what they've done. You have to be impressed with the entrepreneurship and the ambition and the drive that these new Americans who come to the United States with the simple desire to improve themselves and improve their community and improve education. And to me, that is one of the crowning achievements of what the movement has done in Texas and in the United States.
Talking about the achievements of the movement, I'm going to ask you to compare Gulen movement with other civil society movements around the world. I mean, what are the noteworthy aspects of the Hizmet movement compared to other civil society movements?
You know, that's a really hard question to deal with because I am not as intimate. I mean, the only thing that I can talk about is certain missionary activities of different groups. I can talk about, I've lived in Guatemala and Honduras, and so I know about, there's an organization dealing with digging water wells. And so, yes, there are other benevolent organizations that I have some experience with, but the degree of organization, wow, this almost, and again, this is taken in the best light possible. You would almost have to have something like the Catholic Church to have the same comparison made to the depth of feeling the desire for improvement, the spiritual aspect, the education, the improvement of medical facilities. And so it would be a sad world if what the Hizmet movement was either not there or somehow ceased to exist because of what it's accomplished and what profound impact it has.
Talking about the profound impacts it has, I would like to talk a little bit interfaith dialogue activities. As you know, interfaith dialogue is one of the most important activities of the Hizmet movement. What is your opinion about Hizmet's interfaith activities?
The interfaith activity, again, as I said in my sort of introduction, this is how I first got involved. In Houston, there's what's called interfaith ministry, which I was on the board of directors. And Jews, Muslims, Christians, other religions come together for community service. One of the big things we do here is Meals on Wheels. And so from my background and my interest, I've always felt that interfaith dialogue, interfaith getting along, interfaith respect is very, very important. And so when I had the opportunity to extend my knowledge to go with a group, an interfaith group, to Turkey, and I've done this on 4 occasions now over the last 8 years, and meet with Muslims and meet with people who want to understand other faiths, want to understand the United States, want to understand foreign policy, want to understand how people should get along. This is one of the most important contributions that the movement has given, not to Texas, not to the United States, but to the world, of trying to simply bring people together. It's really hard to hate those who you know. And if you know them, that's one of the first steps to respect. And from respect, we go to understanding. And from understanding, we go to love. And I think that is the direction that Gulen wants to take us. And I'm happy he is.